Hey folks, welcome back. We're on turn 193, just about to leave the industrial era where we played as the Mexicans, and we had a couple action-packed episodes in the industrial era fighting against the orange player here, who's now in the contemporary as the Nigerians. Quite some time ago we secured our own continent, so we kind of pushed out. We are the fame leaders at the moment with almost 18,000 fame. And the orange is at about 14,000. They're an era ahead of us at the moment, but going to be pretty hard for them to catch up to that fame gap. But still, you never really know, right? They do have fairly modern armies, and we'll be dealing with this one in just a second here. But I was looking around my empire, and I noticed I still have a few haciendas that haven't started production yet in a few cities. So I'm going to give this a turn before we select which culture we're going to pick so that we don't lose those haciendas. And then we'll go from there. This one we're not going to worry about as much. Actually, no, I already have industry in there, so never mind. We'll let that continue. Okay, so first things first. I don't know why they moved this artillery here, but we are absolutely going to snipe it. So what we're going to do, because they're going to retreat on the first time we attack. So what we're going to do is position our units such that no matter which direction they retreat in, they will get zone of controlled by one of my armies. So you can see all tiles out of here are adjacent to an army of mine, so they're going to get stopped in their tracks and won't retreat out of my range. Really, really awful idea for them to leave their artillery just sitting there. It's one of the only reasons I was playing so much less aggressively. Let's see. So just snipe off what we can with the units I have available, and these are musketeers, so I can't move and shoot with them, but these guys can. Go into a position like that. I have a ton of units that I can bring in here too, so I'm not really worried about whether or not I'll be able to kill these units. Let's see. Okay, you can shoot someone from here. Let's do something like this. Okay, so I think I'm gonna need to bring these in. See if we can finish that off. Just so we have another spot to move our infantry to here, just like that. I have one line infantry. Guess we'll put them on the flag here. Just shoot at someone who's already damaged. Okay, they do have quite a few reinforcements coming from down there. Actually, didn't notice those before for some reason. So my artillery is actually under a bit of threat from these guys here, especially with those winged hussars. So what I'm going to do is bring these soldaderas up here. This isn't the ideal way to use them because I want them to be stealthed, but I'm going to have them serve as blocker units functionally. And it looks like we might end up needing these guys. And keep one up there. This guy will take a decent bit of damage from sitting on the reinforcement point. Okay. Oops. Should have ended that combat. Or ended that round. There we go. Just let them go, and we'll come back and assess the situation. There's nothing we can do about it on their turn, obviously, even though it's sometimes interesting to watch combat. So up here, we're growing reasonably well. We're quite a bit over our population cap. Well, not population cap, but we can use more slots. My industry is a little bit low in here, so I'm going to build a couple more maker's quarters and maybe a coal plant, just so I'm well positioned to go into the next era here. And Byblos is still working on the haciendas. Mikane has a decent queue. Thieves, is there anything better? 52 money is pretty good, actually. Actually, some extra worker slots would be very much appreciated. And we should probably grab this infrastructure as well. That's quite a bit of science I'm leaving on the table if I don't build those. Let's see. Down here, the manufactory would be good as well for some extra slots. Not nearly as much food in this city as some of my other ones, so I am going to grab a couple agriculture quarters here. Okay. This guy is just waiting. I am going to upgrade these units. You might remember from last episode that this has kind of been going back and forth. I'm going to move these guys into position down here. They'll be set up for a fight against the pink player. And you know what? I'm considering, because I was already thinking about doing this anyway, I think I'm just going to declare a war here. So I'm going to refuse their demands first, because they're already at basically max war support. And I'm going to declare war. We've already got a battle going, and this is a client state, basically. Yeah, I should be able to win this, no problem. Unless my guys can't actually get in there, which I thought they were going to be able to. I thought they'd be in the deploy zone. That's okay. We'll just play this very defensively at the start. There we go. Hit those draftees. Hit those draftees. Can these guys move and fire? Yeah, I don't think so. So you got these ironclads, which are going to be pretty nasty. Yeah, they don't really have a chance here, even though they ostensibly have higher combat strength. All right, let's see what happened down here. Yeah, so decent number of units here. Yeah, so these guys, I think I'm actually going to let them come into the combat zone. Move these dragoons up here so they just have to sit on that one spot. Okay, so let's knock out the dug in on the siege artillery. We'll knock them out there. So these units down here won't have dug in because they moved this turn. So we'll do our best to take them out here. I prefer to conserve my artillery where possible. Might have to use... I guess none of these guys have dug in either. Still have an artillery somewhere. Actually not sure where that is. Okay, well, we'll use this artillery to finish off some of these units over here. Let's get the high ground bonus. That spot would be suicidal in there, honestly. Being surrounded by that many units, so I don't think I'm going to move there. Yeah, I thought some of these units might have line of sight here. Gonna move some units down this way, though. Just so I can kind of go around the flank. I have a bunch of prowlers, too. Go figure. The AI love their prowlers for some reason. Like, they just spam the absolute hell out of them. But pretty much as soon as they become available. Hoping with dug in, this artillery will be fine. They are doing quite a bit of damage to it, but I should probably pull it back. I definitely would not consider it safe at this point. But it does suck, because with artillery, obviously, when you move it, you can't shoot anymore. Alright. I should have hit that one first. Let's get rid of that dug in. There we go. Did this guy get hit by something? I feel like he did. I feel like some artillery or something must have slapped him. This guy down here, too, took a ton of damage. So let's pull back to where they shouldn't have line of sight. See Soldaderas down here. Okay. So that line infantry isn't dug in. I think I feel okay about it. What's in this reinforcements? Yeah, nothing I need to worry about. I'm gonna move this artillery back just to be safe. And let's hit him there. Bring one more unit over to this front, since I can use all of them there. I think this guy, yeah, we'll hit the Ormo cavalry. She can take him out this turn, I think. There we go. And got some line infantry. And they hit, yeah. Okay. Don't know where these prowlers are yet. Find out soon, I suppose. Then up here, get rid of the cog, one of the cogs. Carracks are a little bit more dangerous. If we can get in there. Not quite. And we'll hit that guy, I guess. All right. Easy turns here. That's the only one they have left? Yeah. Okay, so that's that city. Don't need to worry about that anymore. And down here I won because I got the flag. Go ahead and upgrade that guy since he's very low health. Yeah, I don't think I... There we go. Let's get them to retreat. So they're gonna take some war support hits right at the start here. Alright, so let's... Yeah, I didn't end my turn or anything. So let's end the turn, and then finally I got a little bit distracted here, but we'll take a look at the cultures we can go up as. So I'm going to kind of run through all of them. There are quite a few options. We'll deal with this in a second. They've got a lot of units running around here. Events. I think I'm okay with Defiant, to be honest. Okay, so going to go culture by culture, even this one that's been chosen. So the Nigerians, they get +4 industry per farmer, get some extra farmer slots per oil, as well as the oil refinery is kind of the main draw for the Nigerians, which creates the new deposit of oil. And then, of course, the MRAP vehicle. I would say, in general, emblematic units are less important in the contemporary era. Before I tell you my thoughts on the Nigerians, let me tell you my thoughts on the contemporary era in general. I'm having some trouble saying contemporary for some reason tonight. So in the contemporary era, there are kind of two main situations, and there's a third situation that is a lot less common. So the first situation, and the most common in single player, is that you go into the contemporary era pretty much ahead of everyone else and just trying to finish the game as fast as possible. And in those situations, typically either science or production are what you're after. And we'll talk about that a bit more once we get to some of those cultures. The second situation you might find yourself in is going into the contemporary era. You're actually behind and need to catch up on fame. So in those situations, it's important to have kind of more diverse outputs in some ways, or to focus on some outputs that you're weak in so that you can try to generate as many stars as you possibly can before the game ends. You're trying to catch up to the fame leader, and the best way to do that is to get as many stars as quickly as possible. So like, say you are not you haven't generated a lot of aesthete stars that game, and you really need to increase your influence, you might pick like the Egyptians. The third one, and one that's kind of niche and doesn't happen very often, is if you're very, very close to someone else as you're going into the contemporary and it's a very even game. That can create some interesting choices, but it just doesn't happen very often. You may not be trying to end the game as soon as possible. You may not be trying to necessarily generate as much fame as possible. It's kind of, you're trying to edge other people out. And those are kind of the situations where the militarists and the expansionists are really the best, or the ones with really good emblematic units, or like really good effects that allow you to win wars easily. But it's not a very common situation. So anyway, so Nigerians, the +4 industry for farmers is appreciated simply because farmers in VIP are actually useful. And the Nigerians do fill a niche with the oil refinery that I appreciate, because sometimes, depending on how you've played and how the game has gone and just the distribution of resources, you don't have access to oil. And oil is a critical part of both combat as well as winning the game, right? Like if you want to win the game by launching the Mars mission, you need oil to do the space station, and as well as the other projects that come along with it. So the Nigerians in the right situation are very good culture in that way. You'd prefer to not have to pick them, but if you need them, you're glad that they're there. Obviously, I can't pick them and I don't need them in this game. So the Cubans, thinking about like the framework under which I'm operating, right, is that in the contemporary era, you are trying to not pick the culture that like you're going to edge someone out with over the long run or anything like that. You are trying to pick the culture that is the most likely to win you the game as quickly as possible. That's what your contemporary era culture pick is going to be about. And I struggle a little bit with the Cubans in that respect. Like the +1 combat strength per alliance on units, as well as giving that combat strength to allied empires is fine. You get extra influence per alliance. Yeah, if you're playing an alliance-heavy game, it'll help you generate those influence era stars. What's a little weird, though, is like this Empresa Pharmaceutica, if that's how you pronounce it, counts as a research quarter, and you get the pharmaceuticals with the +1 stability per pharmaceutical and on commons quarter, and the +3 food per pharmaceutical on commons quarters, and then these like stealth units, basically. The Cubans, it's just like, it doesn't give you the edge that you need if you're like trying to actually play optimally, in my opinion. Like, it's fun, it does interesting stuff, but it's just like the stuff that it does give you is not nearly as good as the stuff the other cultures give you. And yeah, it's hard for me to ever be in a situation where I want to pick the Cubans, especially like the stability thing would seem like a big draw. But frankly, once you get into the industrial era, like stability is basically a non-issue most of the time. So stability in like the late game is not very good, really. Anyway, so Singaporeans, who are the diplomat of the era, they have this reduced city absorb cost and extra stability per number of territories attached. They get some additional fame per client state independent people, which can be good. And they can't evolve outposts into cities, which really isn't a big deal. Most outposts are attached at this point in the game anyway. The district is communal housing. This one's a little bit weird, in my opinion. So it counts as a farmer's quarter and a market quarter, and it gets adjacency bonuses depending on which quarters are adjacent to it. What I find odd about this, actually, is the two outputs you're going to value the most in this era most of the time are the industry and the science. But because the communal housing doesn't itself count as a research quarter or a maker's quarter, by putting it down, you'd actually be breaking up the maker's quarter or science quarter adjacency that you already have. So it's a little weird in that respect. So I don't value the communal housing as much as I do other districts, even though it kind of diversifies. I'd rather have something that's a little more specialized, or perhaps like if this counted as every single type of district, I might be a little more inclined to use it. But it is what it is, I suppose. I actually do quite like the reservists, to be honest, as the home guard. But anyway, Singaporeans, the fame gain can be interesting if you've played the game in the quote unquote right way, I suppose. But I think with the communal housing, it doesn't offer as much as some of the others do. Australians, the Australians are quite good, and there's a reason they haven't really been adjusted much. And I'm going to adjust my microphone because I think my volume might be a little bit on the loud side here, so I apologize if that's the case. But Australians, just straight up plus 20% industry on all cities. You get the strip mining complex, which can also give you a ton of industry depending on your access to strategic resources. And then the all-terrain PMV is fine. It is what it is. You're not really picking the Australians for the emblematic unit, or really almost any culture for their emblematic unit, to be honest. At least not in this era. But very good at industry. If you already have a lot of science and you're just trying to get like the space station as quickly as possible, or maybe you're in a conflict and you just want to pump out a ton of units, Australians, good all-around pick, honestly. Brazilians get plus 3 food on tile producing food. You get the agronomy lab, which gives you food per population, gives you science per farmer, and it gives you some slots and counts as both of those quarters. It's a decent agrarian culture. I think generally in the contemporary era, where a lot of the agrarian cultures struggle, is that growth is kind of redundant at this point. Its only real purpose is to get you the agrarian stars. I don't know why I was struggling so hard to think of my words there. But its only real purpose is to get you the agrarian stars. Your cities are likely to be such high growth at this point anyway that it's just not as important, right? The payoff on food is a much longer time scale compared to the other outputs where you start to benefit from them immediately, right? Because the maximum growth per city per turn is one population. So regardless of how much food you're outputting, it takes time to build up to like your theoretical maximum. And once you reach the contemporary era, the game is often like 25 turns from being done if you're like really playing efficiently. And sometimes not even that, but I've had games where I go into the contemporary era and I've built the Mars mission by like 10 turns in. So food is often just too long of a payoff, right? And this doesn't like give enough. It gives some science, which is nice and appreciated, but it doesn't give enough for the Brazilians to be a really strong pick in most situations. The Chinese are interesting because they do give like a flat plus 15% money to all their cities. And the Congress is actually not bad. The plus 7 money per number of attached territories can add up very quickly. They can often be getting like, I don't know, plus like 49 money in a city, depending on how big your cities are. But it also gives you one of every slot. So if you're going into the contemporary era with a lot of population, it is a really production efficient building to make use of high population. And then the Guardians are actually one of the units that are like kind of worthwhile in the contemporary era. By the time you reach the contemporary, a lot of combat is kind of decided by your unit buffs and not the specific unit that you're using, really. But the Guardians, they have the multi-rocket bombard, so you can bombard twice in a turn, but it also represents like a real upgrade to artillery that a lot of other factions don't get. So I'm a big fan of the Guardians, personally. Chinese, solid all-around culture. They do provide you quite a bit of money. They provide you less money than the Australians do production, but you will also typically have more money output than production baseline, so this plus 15% is not bad. They don't directly get you where you need to go, but if you can just buy out all the districts that you need very quickly, which you often will with the Chinese, that can get you to end the game a little bit faster than some of the other cultures. The Egyptians are kind of weird, and they fall into a bucket where like you're trying to catch up and you're behind on influence and you need to generate a lot of influence to try to get as many stars as possible. But everything else in your game is fine. Influence is kind of like a it's kind of like the least important output at this point in the game. I guess faith is less important, but it's not like a core FIMS. Whoops. Where did I go? Accidentally hit my scroll wheel there. So they produce a ton of influence, but it's hard to justify picking them if you're playing efficiently to win the game, unless you're in like one of those really close situations where you're far behind and you really need those influence stars. But overall, they do generate a lot of influence. It's what they're good at, and I do appreciate this addition of the 30 science per adjacent cultural wonder. But overall, not the best pick most of the time. Or I guess if you do the thing where you try to maximize your fame, that can be a time to pick them. The Indians are interesting. So you get +5 influence per territory, and the +2% money per number of territories in your sphere of influence on capital, right? So it gives you a reason to want to have a lot of influence. And if you look at my number of territories, I have a very nice number of territories. So that would be 138% increase to my money output just by picking the Indians. I wouldn't even have to do anything else. The ashram is kind of weird. +5 influence, +3 faith per adjacent district. Again, I really don't give a shit about faith at this point in the game. It's a total non-factor. There are a couple situations where I might care. So where is it? If I go to the tenants, donate generously as +1 money on district per 2 faith generated. But faith from adjacency is just not that strong compared to the Cathedral Gotica from the Spanish in the early modern. So this isn't really an extreme amount of faith. You do get this interesting on religious district +1 money, +1 science. I think this would be better if there were more religious districts that were actually worth building. There are a lot of those options in the classical era where you have something that counts as a religious district. But as the game goes on, a lot of the religious districts are kind of shit. So I'm thinking the Sobor for the Russians. I'm thinking both the Cathedral Gotica as well as the Ottomans one that I'm forgetting the name of. Where all they really provide is faith at a point in the game where faith has kind of dropped off as being important because you have most of your religious tenets already. So a lot of the time you're not going to have a ton of religious districts. You'll have some. So +1 money and +1 science on those religious districts is a boost, and you'll get it multiple times, right? You could get +5 or +7 money and +7 science on each of those districts. I'm not sure if it's enough, if you have enough of them in most games, that this is a really compelling reason to pick them. But this +2% money per number of territories is. Peacekeepers is fine. It's a very defensive unit. It gets bonus combat strength for wars declared on you. So probably not something you care about if you're in the lead and actively declaring war. But yeah, the trait here, that +2% money, is worth picking the Indians for alone in the right game. Japanese, I would consider the best culture in the era with the way I think about the contemporary, because by picking the Japanese, you immediately increase the speed by which you can win the game basically by 20%. Most of the time you spent in the contemporary is spent researching the text you need to win the game, and this reduces the amount of time you need to do that. The robotics lab, on the other hand, also gives you the 2 most valuable outputs at this point, which is industry to make units or to make the projects that you need in order to win, as well as additional science and providing those extra outputs. This unit is fine. It's a fighter replacement. Are you going to build it very often? Probably not. But again, the unit's not that important of a consideration in this era. The Swedes, I would probably consider the second best. You get the +1 science per district in all cities and +3 science on research quarter, which immediately reduces the amount of time you need to spend researching, plus the research institute, which gives you a whole bunch of science as well. So it increases the speed by which you can win the game. It's really that simple. There's not much else to consider in the contemporary. So the Turks are interesting. In the base game, they're kind of crap, but VIP +3 food per population in all cities. That's a fine buff. They are agrarian. But what's really interesting is the public school. So you get the +3 science per adjacent research quarter. But more importantly, you get +1 of food industry and science per specialist and +2 money for your trader specialists. So you can really stack up some bonuses from this. So this gives you a nice, well-rounded set of outputs, which can be quite impactful with really high population cities. So I'd be curious to play with them. I might consider picking the Turks for the contemporary. Americans kind of have, I don't want to call it an identity crisis, but they do have a bit of a numbers crisis. But I think the problem with the Americans is actually similar to the problem with the Cubans, funnily enough, in that there's not really a situation where the Americans help you win the game better than any other culture. So if you look at like American exceptionalism, +10 influence and +2 money on resources, basically, like the +2 money generated from ongoing trade, like even with 100 trade routes, who cares? That's 200 gold, right? It's nothing. That's nothing. And +10 influence on resources being sold. So what? You might get an extra couple hundred influence. Like it just doesn't matter compared to most of the other outputs. The defense agency, +5 influence per adjacent garrison, +5 money per adjacent research quarter, and +5 science per adjacent market quarter. And it counts as a research quarter and a market quarter. Adjacency bonuses, frankly, are just not that powerful at this point in the game. What you really want are things that scale, right, with some other factor. And the defense agency doesn't do that. You're also going to be conflicted with the defense agency because the kind of the appeal of the defense agency is this +1 bonus combat strength when launching artillery, air, missile strikes. So you really want to place it in a position where you can take advantage of that and not necessarily adjacent to the quarters for the outputs. And those outputs, frankly, are not that strong anyway. But I think the problem with the defense agency, so you have this expansionist, but the defense agency is inherently defensive, right? It helps you defend. It doesn't really help you attack, except maybe in the very initial phase of an offensive, because you have to be parked on it or adjacent to it in order to get the positive effects from the defense agency. And honestly, +1 combat strength when launching artillery, air, missile strikes, it's just not a lot. That's not a lot of combat strength. It doesn't make a big difference. I don't know. It's kind of a crap district. And then the lightning, yeah, it's fine. It's a strong unit, but it's a unit that comes in so late, it's hard to make proper use of in the game. The later a unit comes, the stronger it has to be. And like by the time you get the lightning, the game is turns from over. So it's pretty difficult to actually make use of it. And frankly, I think air units in general are less powerful than they need to be, specifically the range. And I've talked about this a little bit in some other games that I've played, which is aircraft are put in this weird position, right? Because the aerodromes that they operate from, if they end up in a combat zone, your aircraft are disabled. But the combat zones in the contemporary era get enormous. They're huge. Like they will cover, a quarter of a continent sometimes in the right situations. So you need to place like your aerodromes close enough to the front that enemies are actually in range, but far enough away that your units aren't going to get caught in the combat zones, which is a nearly impossible task most of the time. And then by the time you have advanced to the next city, you're already outside the range of your own air cover. So it's just really, really difficult to make effective use of aircraft. And on top of just like a pretty meh kit overall compared to the other options available, like it pretty much never makes sense to pick the Americans. I don't think there's any situation in which I would pick the Americans over another culture. So the Soviets, reduced unit industry costs. You also get negative stability per number of accesses to luxury resources. So I think in most games, you're looking at like minus 40-ish stability, which is definitely something to consider when you pick them. When you combine it with the arms factory where you get minus 10 stability per weapon, it could have an effect. I feel like there are enough ways to offset stability penalties in the contemporary that you won't have to worry about it most of the time. But it is worth considering, if you want to go into the Soviets, maybe like the Austro-Hungarians or the Italians are a bit of a better option, but I don't think this is a big penalty considering the era it comes in. So obviously the draw of the Soviets is the arms factory with the extra CS per weapon for supplied units. Some other effects here. And then the Red Army tank, which has field repairs, which regenerates health after a battle. So obviously the Soviets, you want to produce a lot of units and you give them a bunch of extra combat strength. It's still a good culture, despite the fact that it has to be supplied now. Makes them more defensive, but this reduced unit industry cost and the Red Army tank give you plenty of options to be offensive as well. Definitely not as good as they were when your units didn't have to be supplied, but still worth picking sometimes. So thinking about who I actually want to pick, I know I've been talking quite a bit. Australians would be fine as well. If I go to my tech screen, right, I've got like a lot of one-turn techs. That being said, I did say I'd be interested in the Turks because of the public school here giving outputs to all my specialists. Because normally I would just pick like the Japanese, or if they're not available, picking the Swedes. The Indians would also be interesting. I don't think this is the right game for it, right? But I'd more than double my money immediately just by picking them. But we're going to go for the Turks, I think, specifically for the public school. I don't really care about the stealthy operative missile. People's Reforms is fine, but isn't going to be like that big of a deal. Okay, so we're committing to the Turks. Got Scientific Osmosis for 0, which is amazing. And let's get our queues sorted out here, or at least get something in queue. Let's see, about 1,000 industry in this city. Let's get a little bit more. I feel like kind of 1,400-ish is my threshold for the contemporary. Man, they've just got tons of random crap running around. I am outside my territory here. Okay. I'm going to move these units up. I'm going to... I was thinking about paying to heal that guy, but I think he'll be fine. Let's upgrade some of these units. Alright. And I think these guys had retreated last turn, so let's try to start a combat there. They have 1 artillery up here. Yeah, these guys are really not a big threat. Curious why my side of this combat zone is so small, though. Swap those around. This guy I'm going to move back. I don't want him to run the risk of being in line of sight of the enemy artillery. Okay, so they start dug in. So let's hit some dug in units first. We'll do the same here. Let's see. Is there no way for me to get up there? Let's bring that guy in. Let's hit him. Weird to see dug in on an arquebus. Start bringing in some other units. I was wondering why my units feel like they have such low movements, and I'm realizing that the reason for that is there were changes to the movement cost of certain terrains. So like rocky fields have a really high movement cost now. I think it's 3. If I'm not mistaken. So it just takes forever to move on them. Yeah, we can send some guys up that way. Alright, that guy's low health. I should have just kept him in the reinforcement pool. Okay, they have one unit that'll reinforce there. Let's send like 2 guys over here. Should be enough to deal with it. Whoops. Send that guy up there, I suppose. Might as well bring in the soldaderas. They're all reasonably healthy. Okay. I wonder if these guys are close enough to get in here. I don't think so. We'll kind of send them up the back way. And then I also have these guys that are going to try to take this territory back for me. I'm going to give them a turn to wait, and we'll kind of go back and pillage that same place again. Wow, that is very high combat strength for a knight. Let's grab the flag. Okay. Go for these line infantry here, who are unfortified at the moment. And start hitting some of this cavalry. Surprised I can't hit him from there. Let's move him as far as I can, I think. Can I get him in there? It doesn't look like it. Let's just give some combat strength. Can I kill him, please? Thank you. Maybe. Nice, got him. Okay, I don't want to expose my guy to fire there from someone on high ground. Just move him up there, I guess, and I'm just going to leave him where he is. Ah, there's their artillery. Okay. Not sure how I couldn't spot that before. Okay, I'm going to lose my dragoons. Apparently they had a bunch of units up there. I should have... How do they have 50 strength? Nice. That is a little silly. Alright. Kill the knights. And let's start working on the most damaged cavalry here. This cavalry is proving quite difficult to dislodge with the walls here. Like I might need to send another unit up this way. Let's see. Might as well hit that guy, I guess. And that looks okay. See if they actually take their flag back or not. Nope. Okay, so I only lost the dragoon. Got close on one of my units there, but they didn't quite get him, so no big deal. They keep surprising me with the number of units that they have, to be honest. Okay, so here we are in the contemporary. And honestly, I'm kind of tempted to just go straight for the space station. I would normally go kind of down the bottom side more. Get a couple of these queued up. So when I say the bottom side, I mean the bottom of the tech tree. And largely because there is a tech there that gives, what's it? It's fine. There's a tech there that gives plus, I think it's 20% production in VIP and 50% production in the base game. Deprioritize that. Memphis, take that one out, let's buy that. I think I just want to get a couple of these out in all my cities, and then we're going to start thinking about trying to get the space station and just ending this thing. This game's gone on quite a while. There's been a lot of combat. You're good. Okay. No, I'm gonna refuse that. Yeah, my stability should be fine. No reason not. Oh, that's a different person. Never mind. Don't want to attack them. I feel like I should bombard them, maybe. So won't kill them. Go for the attack there. Okay, retreat. Let's move guys up. Alright, looks good. We're pretty well positioned to attack San Lorenzo next turn here. You wait. And just hang around the city, I suppose. And let's send you back to deal with that. How am I doing over here? It's a little ways. I prefer to attack from a relatively favorable position. Don't know. I'm just AI doing AI things here. I also could claim a wonder. Let's see if there have been any major changes. Doesn't seem like it. Pentagon would be nice. Number of bombardments and reduced industry cost for bombard units. But I do think Sydney Opera House is probably the play here. Plus 10% to all the outputs is pretty good. Unsettled city, but honestly stability is such a non-issue that I think all my cities would get that effect. Okay, let's move you back. Pretty high health. That guy's pretty low health. The guy I replaced him with is pretty high health. Okay. Oh, this is a machine gun. Based on the icon, I was thinking it was artillery. Okay. Need to get rid of that siege artillery here first, I think. Yeah, they don't have that much in the way of particularly strong units. These draftees are cannon fodder, really. Okay, see if we can knock this siege artillery out here with our own artillery. Please kill him, thank you. And the rest of these units, I'll just hit whatever they can. up here. Oh, come on. Try to have a better spot for this machine gun. Should have paid a little bit more attention when I deployed. But I'm honestly not used to having machine guns. I pretty much just use the line infantry and siege artillery. Should just be able to roll in there and claim the flag on the next turn. Can... It's not a good spot either. Whatever, not gonna worry about it. Alright. They're idle. Might as well bring them in to combat here. Just in case. Sometimes the AI will show up with reinforcements or whatever that you don't expect. So don't want to get caught too off guard. Hoping they are out of ways to attack this guy. Seems like they are. Okay, grab the flag. They're out of people. Yep. Alright. Yeah, this war will go pretty fast. They have a lot of luxury still. I'm kind of surprised. Let's move him up here. Maybe I can find a target to bombard next turn. Closing in on an hour already. How does this always happen? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and finish those off so this can get to work on the public schools. I'm excited to see the impact of these, honestly. Did not add any public schools here. Okay. Let's just buy that. Yeah, the academy is worth building still. Finish up the inventor's workshop. I'll also need aluminum. Let's add that right in there. Where else do I have aluminum? Up here? Got one here. Okay, nice. A little extra fame. No aluminum up here, but we still want this territory anyway. Anything down here? Yeah, we have one down here. And let's get the harbor in here as well. Alright. Okay, looks good for now. Still with these prowlers for some reason. Okay, I think I just want to push on to La Venta, honestly. That is what I'm going to do. Give my units a turn to heal here, and we'll go after these prowlers with this army. Even if they just retreat, that's fine. They're not going to, though. Or maybe they can't. It's the more likely situation, I suppose. There we go. Easy peasy. Okay, are there... Yeah, I can't hit them. It's fine. They'll just sit there. In case any units show up, they can take it back for me. Oh, I'm absolutely not giving you a white piece. Okay, there are artillery striking me. It doesn't really do any damage. Let's get these guys upgraded. I'll keep them behind in San Lorenzo so they don't come snipe that city out from under me. Actually, I suppose I could do that with the Soldaderas. Okay. Where's my... There he is. I'm going to put this machine gun right in here. Should have decent line of fire. Let's have one of the artillery over here as well. Should be good enough. I'm not gonna stress out about my placement of units too much in this situation, considering I am going to absolutely steamroll these guys. Do they even have any reinforcements? It's just the one. Yeah, I'll just let them come to me. More efficient than hunting them down, honestly. This is a curious choice to go on the water there. Okay, there's the last units. Alright, it's easy peasy. It's militarist star. And idle you. Do that. Extra industry would be nice, honestly. It's 8% growth gain. It's a lot. It's a big loss. Let's go for bountiful. Finish up the academy and start working on those public schools. And I can already end the war here, which I am going to do. So we'll force surrender. These cities don't really have much in the way of luxuries in them, which is a little odd considering the amount of space we're taking out. Don't know why I can't retreat from that. I was being ambushed. Fine, whatever. Should have gone for this city in hindsight. I wasn't paying close attention to the luxuries, but oh well. This is still going to be pretty crippling for them. That was, man, I was playing way too fast there, and I forced surrender without doing any of my demands. Let me go back. It's a little late in the evening for me, so I'm not surprised I made a stupid error like that. I don't normally reload, but that was just me being silly. For surrender. Okay. Going to go for San Lorenzo because it's actually on my border. Then something, is there anything bordering me that actually has luxury resources? Not really. Lerna has oil. I don't think I care about either of those territories. So I could grab Gergovia. I don't really care about Gergovia, but I'm just going to pillage it, I think. Okay, so I'm 2 cities over the cap. I'm going to move these guys over here and just pillage. I don't need that city. I guess I could absorb it here. Oh, why am I using so much stability? Oh, I guess a big part of it's city cap. We got Defiant. Yeah, it's fine, honestly. Oh yeah, they get extra stability because they count as a commons quarter. And I have an effect that gives stability, so just keep building public schools, I guess. One of the underrated effects of anything that counts as a commons quarter is that you can still build it even if you have negative stability. That city didn't technically have negative stability yet, it was just trending that way, but I find that's a bigger deal than it seems. Oh, okay, I guess I can't do it with that. Never mind what I just said. Regular commons quarters you can, but I guess not on things that count as commons quarters. I feel like I could do that with the Ming, though, when I picked them, but maybe I'm mistaken. Okay. There's a part of me that wants to start renouncing all these. I'm pretty much just going for the end of the game now. No, I'm going to refuse your demands. So rocket science is 1 turn away. And I think after that, I'm just going to go along the bottom of the tech tree to fusion reactor. Circumnavigate the world. +5 money on Maker's Quarters, or +1 stability on Maker's Quarters. I'm going to go for the extra money. Gee, do I? Yeah, I don't need any of those civics. Those are all fine. Renounce. Don't need them over there anymore. Still pillaging, okay. Non-aggression pact. Honestly, yeah. Lovely. Give me all these luxuries. There's no real cause for me to be going after him anymore. I could try to, obviously maximize my Aerostars, but I don't need that to win. I'm just trying to get the win as fast as possible now. I think this game's kind of gone on long enough for me that I don't really feel compelled to keep going or to try to maximize anything. Overproductive. Okay, public school, finish that up, and we'll just buy that outright. Can apparently build a space station in 1 turn. Suppose that'll work. Is there anywhere a little bit more remote? Yes. The natural space, or place for a space station. I can't finish pillaging that anymore. Oh well. Same with this. I kind of thought I might get away with it, but no big deal. Okay. Have you worked on Sydney Opera House, honestly? Sure, why not? Put it right there. I don't really care where it goes, to be honest. Going to prioritize working on it, I think. I have a bunch of money from the from ending that last war. Three turns. Okay, so lunar lander now. Put it on top of the old one. Let's see. I'm gonna go for overproductive. A little bit of extra production. Won't hurt. And let's prioritize the lander here. I think 2 turns is okay. I'm not going to get that down to 1. Yeah, still in the lead on fame. This will be nice as well. This extra, the extra FIMS output from the uranium that I'll be getting, but not really necessary. I'm going for a pretty early win here, but there's really no reason to drag this out. Sure, let's boast. Okay, we have nuclear stuff research, so let's get our uranium mine, and let's start working on the Mars colony. And as soon as we finish that, we win. Unfortunately, not the most fair look at the Turks here, but honestly, with someone playing the game optimally, this is kind of how it goes. The most important thing about any of the contemporary era cultures is always the legacy trait for this reason, right? It's really easy to get to the end of the game once you get to the contemporary. Pollution increase, so on and so forth. We have the pollution effects off, so that's not really a problem. Okay, Price Redeemer got claimed. We'll just claim one of these just because. I don't know why I paused there. I felt like that message was way longer than usual. How much of this is coming from the public school? So get +2 from the public schools. This would be +4 from public schools then. So say we're looking at industry with 2 public schools. I'm getting 44 industry, 52 food, 4 times 17, that's weird math, so that's 68 money and 48 science. Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty good district, right? So we double all those outputs. I mean, that's like, it's a couple hundred FIMs per public school. It's just distributed across all the different FIMs rather than concentrated. So it's not bad for someone with like high population that wants to, get all the FIMs. Does it help you end the game faster than other cultures? Not really. It's going to be a good pick in a situation where you have very high population when the game is relatively competitive. But frankly, that's not most games. Okay, there's my extra industry on cities. Just make you idle. Just work on public schools until the end of time. Don't want to reduce anything. 50% worker slots, minus stability. I don't care about unit industry costs. We'll get some farmer slots. Okay. Doesn't really matter what I work on now. Is there anything that gives me extra fame, I guess, that's achievable? Because you can go for space orbital. Okay, so that should give me the event. Double check I'm in the lead still. Yeah, so still 6k. Obviously, there's still a ton of fame available to me, but there's really no chance that the other players are catching up here. And let's just build the Pentagon in some random spot, because we can. And I guess we can build our fission test. Normally I would have done this already, but... And there we go. Once I end the turn here, that'll be the end of the game. Just give everyone something to work on. And there we go. Very short contemporary. But this playthrough has been a lot longer than my normal games. So I didn't really feel the need to keep it going. I'm not sure how much more fame was achievable that era. Apparently my best era was the medieval era. I'm not sure that's true. Normally it would be contemporary just because of the amount of fame available. There's a lot of it just between like the techs and the era stars and the wonders and all that kind of stuff. I guess I did have a pretty solid medieval era though, just because with my odds I was researching into the next era. So it was kind of an extended era, which gave me a lot more opportunity to generate stars. Now, the interesting thing about VIP is that it comes harder to generate stars the more stars you've already generated, kind of across the board. It doesn't scale up in quite the same way. So that doesn't seem like a standout era to me. But in general, just like the amount of fame that you're going to get in a VIP game is going to be lower than it is in a vanilla game. You'll notice I didn't get any of the diplomat stars in any of the eras. I need to do a playthrough where I focus on that a little bit more and take like the Sumerians at the start. I need to find a good balance to conflict and diplomacy. Man, that's a really sad star showing in the last era there, but I wasn't really worried about it. So let's take a look at science here. So this is why I often find it suspicious when the AI like have certain technologies in the industrial era. Is you look around here, which is kind of around the time I entered the industrial, we were relatively even on science. They somehow did reasonably well in this period here, but like they were pretty much even Steven with me on like their military techs for the entire game, even though like especially in these last 30 or 40 turns here, my science really exceeded theirs. I don't know, it's just a little weird. Let's take a look at their money. Yeah, I was doing the best on that before. Food, yeah, once I picked the Mexicans, that's where you can see that. Turks helped a bit with that as well. You can see that +3 food per population bump right on that part right there. I was only in the contemporary era for like 15 turns or something. Influence, obviously the Ming were a big factor there. Population. It's pretty good for the AI, honestly. I was kind of impressed by the orange player of this game. It was a substantially bigger challenge than a lot of other games I've played. If you look at this research, does that really correspond with the amount of science that they were generating? I guess right here my science wasn't great. I'm not sure. Let's see. Cities, obviously. And then fame, once I got ahead, I stayed ahead. Yeah, interesting game. I might make a video just kind of collecting my thoughts on VIP in general. Obviously, I've put quite a few out there already over the course of the game, and as I've played VIP games, my thoughts on the mod have changed as well, or on the mod pack. Overall, I would say that I do think it is more balanced than it is in the base game. I also think that in some ways it is less accessible than the main game for a variety of reasons, but I think VIP definitely caters towards people who understand the mechanics of the game well, which is fine. And I appreciate that as someone who does know a lot about the mechanics of Humankind. But for someone who's relatively new to the game, I don't know if I would recommend the mod pack. It just relies on you understanding a lot of things about the game and how it operates and what you should expect in order to make correct decisions, I think. Particularly when you're looking at civics choices, but there are some like legacy traits and that kind of stuff that are a little obtuse as well, which are, I think, more compelling and better balanced than the main game and make for more interesting choices, but is not going to be as well understood by someone who's playing the game, for their first 50 or 100 hours, for instance. Anyway, really appreciate you all tuning in. I'm not sure what's going to be coming after this play. I've got a lot of different things ahead of me in my personal life, and I'm thinking about branching out just a little bit. There is a game on Steam that I've kind of been into a little bit recently called Songs of Six. It is kind of like Dwarf Fortress inspired. If you're not familiar with it, take a peek. It's kind of interesting. Obviously, I wouldn't be like pivoting to that. It's just something that I have enjoyed playing recently and has taken a little bit of my attention. So I might make a couple videos on that and see if people are interested. It is quite an interesting little game. I believe it's a solo developer, if I'm not mistaken. Obviously, though, still focusing on Humankind mainly. Just a question of when I'll be able to start the next series up. Hopefully, I'm not sure about... Well, maybe I'll have some time next week to start doing some recording. But anyway, we'll see. It'll come when it comes. But thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one, whenever that next one is.